Welcome back, everybody. Clint here today. Excited to be bringing on my friend and special guest, Jay Pedro. He is a firearms instructor. He's got real-world experience doing the things that he's actually teaching, and he's winner of the International Sniper Competition. We'll get into all of that, and of course, I've got a list of questions here from you guys in the audience. So you've been following for however long you guys have been following, and I'll typically pose questions on my Instagram stories and whatnot about the guests that I have on the channel and see what you guys want to talk about. So let's go ahead and welcome Jay Pedro to the stage here. Jay, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, anytime, Clint.
Yeah, appreciate it, dude. So really quick, let's give it a little background. You're owner-operator of Gray Sky Training. You've done some pretty cool stuff in the past. Give us a quick little intro background about yourself, man.
Let's see. So I was a sniper school instructor for 6 years on the Army side. Shot a lot of comps and everything, including, like you said, the international comp. Got a first and second place finish there. A bunch of other stuff. Did Iraq, did Afghanistan. Saw quite a bit on both sides there. I got pretty lucky, I guess you could say in some ways. And when I got out of that, I came back from Afghanistan, decided to become a cop. I did that for a while. I was a town cop, got to go through SWAT school. I was a firearms instructor. I shot a ton of comps as a cop too, because it's kind of like it's the only way to really know if you're good or not.
Right.
I'm a part of the Connecticut SWAT Challenge. I'm on the board of directors for the nonprofit that runs that. So I've been a part of that for a long time, which is one of the biggest SWAT comps in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
So let's see what else. I do PSD contracting type stuff now, all over the place. So it's got me traveling quite a bit. I feel like probably 3 days home this whole month between that and training. A lot of guys know me online. I was at Ridgeline Defense. I was there for 3 years. LE program manager and director of training over there. So it's probably where I, really, no one really knew who I was publicly until I started posting on Instagram and everything when I was working there. And some of those guys kind of stayed with me, followed me on to the next gig. So last year I started my own company, Gray Sky Training and Consulting. So doing a lot of the same stuff, right? So teaching long range, LE SWAT sniper, DM type stuff, night vision, pistol carbine, you name it. So got a lot of big events coming up that I'm trying to plan and start, and we can get a little bit into those a little more maybe, but sure. Yeah, that's the general background of everything. Yeah,
man. So I first met you at Ridgeline Defense when you were there. You were one of the instructors, and that was when I was with Classic, and we were doing a collaboration with Surefire on the release of the RC3, their flow-through silencer, and that was awesome. That was really cool. The bounding, the vehicle bailouts, everything else that we were doing, checkpoints, all that. That was a lot of fun, and 10 out of 10 would recommend that style of training to anybody and everybody. I'm also a student of Jay's. We've done your down and dirty, night vision type stuff with a couple friends of ours as well. We'll be doing that again soon. I just pretty much spectated a class you did this past weekend over at Monadnock Firearms with Rob and everybody. That was more of like an intro to the carbine class, right? And so that was really cool to kind of see that again and get some content there. But one of the questions, as we get into your background a little bit more in the introduction here, was how you got into precision shooting and what drew you into that discipline.
Man, I don't know. Like everybody that was a kid in the 80s, it was everything. Every good action movie ever came out. You got Die Hard, Rambo, Commando, Predator, Red Dawn. Like they all, everybody in my age, grew up watching all that stuff. And kind of, I don't know how you didn't end up in the military if you grew up in the 80s, right? So, but yeah, it was. I don't know, it's just something I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be a sniper in the Army. I always wanted to be a SWAT cop, and I got super lucky and got to do both,
Yeah.
But it's always something I've wanted to do. There's a lot of reading, right? I was kind of a bookworm when I was a kid as well. So I was reading, everything I could possibly get. I'd go to the store, I'd stand there reading like the Guns and Ammo magazine. Yeah. Everything. There's no internet back then. Right. So that's when you actually found out what was coming out, what was new. It was gun mags. Obviously the things have changed quite a bit since then as far as how info is put out. But back then that was it. That and books. So I think I remember it's like the military book club or something. You'd spend it was like BMI. You pay like $1, you get like 10 CDs. Well, this was like military book club. You would send them like so much money, and that you get like so many like free books. I was like, oh, this is great. So I was always reading everything I could. From World War I, World War II, Vietnam, the 80s, modern firearms instructors, whatever I could get my hands on, I was trying to read. And I read Plaster's book, way back when it first came out, and it was a whole bunch of stuff. I never thought of like, oh, there's like a lot of math to this and everything else, and that really kind of sparked my desire to know more about how to do that stuff and the sciencey part of it.
Right.
Not just the field craft, but the actual like internal, external, terminal ballistics. Like that has always fascinated me.
Yeah, no, that, I never was like a fan of math myself going through, grade school, elementary, high school, all of it. I was just like, dude, math sucks. And then I get into shooting and I was like, damn it, I should have paid attention. Yeah. For sure. Especially when you start getting into that distance shooting, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. Yeah. Another question we got was, what was the International Sniper Competition actually like? How tough, and like what does it test?
So why it's not just a shooting competition. That's kind of why I kind of like shooting in those type events. You have everything from target detection exercises where you have objects that are hidden at range, like you have like an AK-47 like leaning against a tree like 700 yards out, right? And if you found that, then that like unlocked a target on a different stage. So you had to have like the actual fieldcraft part. If you weren't solid there, it didn't matter how good you could shoot, because you wouldn't. There's targets you weren't even going to find, or you weren't going to be able to shoot, even if you didn't know where they were. Mm-hmm. So there was a ton of movement. We did a very extensive night road march type thing, but they're actually like looking for you, trying to chase you around. You have to get in. There was a stalk. So you got guys on the truck with the binos, and you're in the ghillie suit and stuff, and you and your buddy have to sneak in and on scene, fire a blank round. I can't remember. I think one year they did a live fire. So they basically they start close to the truck, and they work their way backwards, right? So you're not shooting over anybody, but like whoever stalked the closest, they clear the truck out, they put a target where the observer was, and they hand the guy a live round, right? So then he's got to hit it, make sure that he actually had a loophole not that you couldn't just see through, but you could actually shoot through. Right. And that's if people are like, oh yeah, I could have shot that guy. They don't understand like how the tiniest twig can deflect your bullet, especially at distance. So,
right, man, that's wild to think about. And then being able to scan your sector of fire and pinpoint that anomaly. I mean, when you think about like an AK leaning against a tree, I'm assuming wood furniture and black metal, that blends in pretty good, especially at distance. I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a whole science to detecting targets, and it's one of the things I cover in all my law enforcement courses and some of the other stuff I do. But yeah, it was a lot of moving targets. We had to shoot a Barrett. We had to do. There was pistol. There was close in stuff. There was. Let's see what else.
So when you think like
distance,
international
long range,
right, and when you think. Yeah, I would take into consideration, like when I think International Sniper Competition, everything is at distance. I can definitely see where there would be known distance, and then of course unknown distance, and then you got to make up for that and then try to calculate and all that type of stuff. But I would never take into consideration that a pistol would be used in a sniper competition or the International Sniper Competition. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, back then the main rifle was the M24, which was a 5-shot bolt action rifle. So if that's all you have in your hands, when you come across someone at close range, it might not be the best, This was before the days, or actually they're just kind of just getting out there, but everyone has like mini red dots on their scoped guns now. I did have one on an SPR, but most of the bolt guns didn't have them back then. They're just starting to kind of come out. I think I started with the Jay Point and then the Dr. Optic. The Dr. Optic was, super fragile. It was, I think, made in Germany, but now they're very rugged. You can do whatever with these things. But back then, it was like either gamer ones or really fragile ones. So the Dr. Optic, like the glass would break pretty easily, and on the J Point, it was like, I think it was even a plastic lens, but it worked okay. But there was no lock, so it was just like a friction when you zeroed it. So I remember when I was in Iraq once, I got off the helicopter and I just kind of did like a quick check with it, and I saw the dot was all the way off to one side. I was like, oh, that's not good.
That ain't gonna work.
Yeah, it's amazing like how much the equipment, everything from ammo, optics, laser rangefinders, how much everything has changed since GWAT started, and all this like new tech that's out there. It's absolutely amazing. I don't think we even could use laser rangefinders back then at the comp, and now everyone has them on their rifle. So
right, yeah, it's standard equipment now. It seems like.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. That's so cool, dude. So, what did the competition teach you that everyday shooters could actually apply?
One is be well-rounded, right? So everything, all the different skills that you have to do, it's like I said, it's not just the shooting. You have to be in shape is a huge one. If you weren't fit, I mean, they had us, climbing walls, running all over the place, going through obstacle courses. There was so many things that we had to do that it required fitness. And if you think about it, like guys like, oh, I have all these guns. Why do you get the guns? Oh, in case the world ends, or I got to defend my family. Like, okay, like, you also got to be in shape. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you just can't stand there and shoot from like this bubble. You have to go out and do things. And if you're not fit, you're probably going to die,
Yeah, that's something that is so slept on. I've got all the gear, I got everything, and then it's like, okay, but have you actually ran a quarter mile with all that gear on?
Yeah.
And that's definitely a challenging part. I think a lot of people get complacent thinking I got all the guns and ammo right here in my basement, but it's like, well, one thing that I think a lot that we've learned through, recent conflicts in the United States history is those that are stationary typically are dead. And then those that, don't move, you got to move. That's all there is to it. So,
right. And I think my absolute baseline is, can you put a 35, 40 pound pack on, and can you do 4 miles in 1 hour? If you can't, just start there. Like that's your first goal. See what it takes. Throw some hiking boots on, whatever, throw on a pack, put some weights in it or a sandbag, whatever, and just see if you can do 4 miles in an hour, see how that feels. That's what I tell most of the guys that ask me, like, what should I do to get in shape? Start there.
That's going to be my baseline right there. I'm going to try to do that this weekend.
Yeah, it's funny if you go back and read like ancient Roman texts that are like 2,000 years old, that was pretty much their same thing, and it's like very close to modern infantry standards, for Army and Marine Corps, everything else. So it's the distance, the weight, it's stuff what we've known as humans for literally thousands of years.
Yeah, that's something, obviously I'm now veteran status, not actively serving in the Marines anymore, but that was something that at my old unit we did quite a bit of. When I became a headquarters company and attached to like an infantry unit, we actually, oddly enough, we actually didn't do as much hiking. Yeah. But at my previous command, it felt like, man, I'll never forget. We were on one. It was probably about a 6-7 mile. We had our, packs on, full kit with rifle. And I'll never forget our chief warrant officer, who did not have a rifle, who was not in full kit, but did have the pack on. His arm swing and stride was massive. And of course, we're getting yelled at, telling, hey, you don't run. Just walk faster. Right. We're like, dude. And then the rear of the formation is doing the slinky effect, terrible. But so it definitely tests your cardio and physical shape. So that's something I think is huge.
Yeah, and your pack only, when you do it for real, your pack only weighs more. I think some of my packs when I was in Afghanistan, I'm up in the mountains. It feels like there's no air to even breathe. My packs were over 100 pounds. I've got like a Barrett sometimes and an M4. We're climbing up stuff like this. It doesn't get easier. So start there. It's a great place to start. I think back to the question, like what did I take from that? Is I would say, shooting comps is absolutely key. I know a lot of guys on the gram think they invented that in the last year or two, but it's been a thing for a long time, right? Both in the if you look at the military's been running rifle comps since the 1800s, early 1900s. Camp Perry, everything. So rifle marksmanship was always huge. And then if you go to, I was in Germany, I was in Nuremberg a few years back, and there's a huge castle on the river, and it's one of my favorite places to go because they have all these, they have suits of armor and halberds and swords and you name it, and it just traces like the military arms way back. And there's a thing on the wall, and it talks about how in the 1500s that the townships there would encourage the citizens to come out, take their I think it was crossbows at first, then it turned to rifles, and they wanted them to be better, right? So they'd make it fun. They'd have prizes for people to win. Who was the best, shooter, and so it's not anything new. It goes way back.
I mean, just thinking about, like, you're talking medieval times. I mean, the Popinjay shooting contests, the tournaments that they would hold, right? I mean, there was always some sort of challenge, like, okay, who's the superior warrior in this situation? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it goes way back. So, but yeah, it really is a great thing. I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't started shooting comps. It allowed me to meet other people, kind of see what they're doing, what I'm doing, kind of match everything up, bounce ideas off of people, see new techniques, new kit, different countries, kit and rifles and optics. And it's, test yourself. There's 1,000 reasons to go. And the biggest one really is because it's stressful. Like, no one wants to look bad. So when you get out there and you have all these other people in your group, whatever, watching you shooting and doing something, if you suck at it, like that's like a shame involved, So you want to get out there, you want to look good, be good, because the self-induced stress of looking like you suck at the job you're supposed to be doing is not a good feeling. So
and that's funny, because like this past weekend when I saw you training and instructing, it's funny, as a student, you try to absorb as much as possible, but since I wasn't focused, because I wasn't a student, always a student type of thing, but because I wasn't shooting, it felt like, just as a spectator and as I was trying to get content and stuff like that, I felt like I was actually taking in a little bit more. And one thing that you said, which really just kind of like, it made me laugh, but also it's like, damn, now you got a point, was that in a gunfight, you felt not as stressed out as you do like in a competition with all your buddies watching you. Can you elaborate on that some?
Oh yeah. I mean, if I'm in a gunfight and I get killed, I'm not going to know that, right? If I go up there and I run a stage and I completely bomb it in front of all of my peers, I'm gonna know that that's gonna hurt pretty bad, So like that self-induced stress that you get of shooting a comp, it really makes the competition stuff easier. I mean, it makes real world stuff easier. So it's kind of a funny thing that could be more stress,
Yeah. Oh, I totally get that. I mean, your boys ragging on you is going to be, that's tough.
Oh yeah, sure is.
Yeah, and then it goes beyond that too, because then, it's this entire mentality that I know you and I probably share, is like, hey, we want to make sure that the guys to our left and right can depend on us, right?
Right.
And then somebody says like, damn, I don't want that guy in a gunfight. Oh, that stings, right?
Yep.
Like, oh yeah, I don't want that to happen.
And the big thing too is how efficient can I be at every task I'm doing, right? I'm always trying to round the corners, shave time off of everything I do. And the sniper world especially, and the precision rifle world, like going way back, that was not always a huge thing. A lot of comps, you think like F class, like belly shooters and like belly matches, like you get out there and you got all the time in the world. You don't like check the wind and read the flag over here, get down on the prone, fire one shot, stand up, kind of shake it off type thing. And that's perfect for that kind of competition, like when you're learning and stuff. But a lot of guys, they get in this mindset of, hey, I have a precision rifle, so I'm going to shoot prone, I'm going to shoot slow, and just take my time. I have all the time in the world. And you really don't, right? So going fast with a bolt gun and a SPR like that's where I really picked that up and really got to kind of hammer that and be efficient, was doing stuff like those bigger comps. And then I was like, okay, like we're teaching this all wrong. I was at the schoolhouse at the time I went there, and we did like stupid stuff. Like sometimes we would the guys that were there before I started, they're teaching like single load, because the M24 had like a weird kind of box mag that was designed to maybe take a 300 Win Mag if you needed it, if you change the barrel, but it was a long action. So when you tried to feed it, 7.62 NATO 308, it would not always feed the best. So they would have you take one round out, feed it in, lock the bolt, lift the bolt after you shot, knife edge it back, and catch the brass. Where everyone was so caught up in like the Gunny Hathcock, sniper thing of, hey, we're gonna crawl 1,000 yards through this field and shoot this general from like 1,000 yards away, and then we're gonna exfil back. That doesn't really, it's not like a real mission profile.
Right.
So it's it held us back. When GWAT started, our training was terrible in the sniper world. It was not efficient. We weren't teaching guys how to do stuff fast. We weren't prepared as a whole. And it doesn't matter. I know Army guys, Navy guys, like soft dudes, Rangers. I've seen them all, competed against them all. Marines, foreign troops. The entire sniper world was very much set in that 1970s, 80s, super field crafty, heavy. Very slow, methodical, long range shooting type stuff. And then we got to Iraq and Afghanistan. Afghanistan different ammo, but especially in Iraq, guys, you got dudes all over the place. You're fighting building to building. There's bad guys squirting out across the alleys or just popping up real quick. So you had to be fast. You had to be efficient, and that's right. That's why the way precision rifles are now. Even on the commercial side, the military side, the law enforcement side. They're set up a way, and that's how we figured out how to do it, right? And it was because there was some 3-gun stuff that kind of come out like with JP and everything else way back in the day. But having a lightweight like an SPR, precision gas gun, that's why it's always been my favorite rifle of all time, because you can pretty much do an awful lot with it. I can clear a house. I can do whatever I have to do up close, and I can shoot stuff at longer range.
Yeah, which I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit here, because one of the questions was, hey, just right out of the box, what is your favorite rifle setup? Like if you could choose only just one gun, right? One, barrel length, one caliber, to do pretty much any type of work you have to do up here in New Hampshire, what would it be?
It would definitely be a small frame gas gun with a, free float, like longer rail, probably Harris bipod that I could pop on and off, like some QD type thing. Definitely a optic, whether it's a 1-8 like a Night Force Attacker, or like a 3-18 Leopold, like Mark 5, Mark 6, whatever. Some kind of tree reticle in there. Some kind of depending on what I'm coming up against would be whether it's match ammo or like an LE style, like bonded ammo. Suppressor, probably a 14 5-inch barrel. That way it's kind of handy. So getting in and out of cars, going in and out of buildings, tight spaces, things like that. Real long, heavy guns are really cool when you're only shooting far away. But they definitely suck when you're fighting car to car. Stock I can collapse, a good match trigger. It doesn't really have to be anything fancy. And
yeah, is there a brand or a manufacturer that you prefer?
Lately, the Sons of Liberty Mark 1 is probably my favorite gun that's out there right now. It's incredibly reliable and very, very accurate. Good trigger, great rail. The way they kind of like laser cut the stippling in the rails is pretty sweet. A lot of guys kind of maybe poo-poo. It's a little expensive. Good things usually cost money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's one of the what I often say to people is like, oh dang, that's expensive, and it's like, okay, well, at the end of the day, let's say you're using this in a life or death situation. Would you rather have cheaped out, or would you rather have made an investment because you actually place some sort of high value on your life and perhaps your loved ones?
Right. And a lot of these guys, they'll have like 15 guns of like crappy guns. Like you could just have one really good gun and have it all tricked out.
Right.
Right.
No, you're absolutely right.
Shoot. And guys, they like to collect guns more than they like to, sometimes get better. Like I like to collect guns too. I've got a decent amount. Sometimes I find like, oh, there's that. I haven't seen that in a while. But you know what I mean? Like if you want to get good, you have to just pick something and get good at it. You got to put the time in, learn it. And a good rifle like that, where I know I'm getting something that's incredibly accurate, incredibly reliable, great trigger, great rail, right out of the box. It's kind of hard to beat.
Yeah, no kidding, man. So yeah, that I saw you running. I think you brought the Suns Mark 1 with you. Is that kind of how you have it set up right now? This is kind of what you described.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly it. Yeah, I've got a Night Force Attacker 1-8. I've got the RMR on it. I've got a Surefire. I have a Griffin suppressor that runs on there. Good 2-point sling from A&R Design, who's a New Hampshire guy as well. It's got the stock Suns match trigger in it, which I actually really like. I was a huge Geisley SSA fan for a long time.
Yeah, I
like the new Suns trigger. I came out of the box like, wow, it's nice little bit of a flat face, but still has a curve at the top and the bottom. Great, nice. The stages are perfect. Good crisp break. I was impressed.
Yeah, that's one that's on my list. I'm gonna have to take a look at for sure. Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
As we kind of transition into, I mean, we've already talked a little bit about this, but like the mindset and mental game. One question is, what, at the end of the day, is there a balance between like mental control versus technical skill? And that question I think is like almost, you might have a better answer than what I would, but it's like, be proficient in both. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you got to have both. You can't be the guy that doesn't know how to run your stuff. Like I'm sure you saw in the military, the guys that can't fill their radio. They have to like always have somebody else do it for them. Yeah. You have to know how to run everything. You got to know how to build, especially like doing the long range game. You got to know how to build a solver. You got to know how to use a kestrel, not over rely on it. You got to have good solid hard dope on you, like on a card on your arm board or something. Or I mean, honestly, you should know most of your dope. And know how to interpolate between different ranges, what's not on your card, which is it's a pretty simple skill. But yeah, you have to be technically savvy. There is a tech world. Look at combat overseas right now and like what's going on. Like look at how much technology is involved in every single thing, and look at the way things are going with there's new counter drone tech that most people probably don't know about. There's new, night vision stuff. There's these different bands and wavelengths that everybody's playing in. And it's crazy. It's like some sci-fi stuff is probably going to pop here pretty soon. So you have to understand that, you can't just be like a caveman and be out there. You're not going to be very efficient. You need those guys sometimes, but you have to be I think it was the SF sniper course way back in the early 2000s. There's an article that's like they're shooters and thinkers, right? You have to be able to do both. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've always tried to do at the courses I've always run, whether it's a military course, an LE course, now doing open enrollment, like SPR scope carbine stuff. You got to be able to think. But the mindset is very important. A lot of guys like hype mindset because they sell a mindset class, right? So they're like, mm-hmm. You're only going to have this mindset if you come to my 3-hour seminar type thing. I see the dudes online that they'll like pay someone to like yell at them. I don't know what that's all about, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think I think some guys like kind of like maybe thought GWOT was going to go on forever and kind of like waited and maybe missed out on it type thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think guys, trying to like recapture it. And the modern world is really, if you're like a meat eating type dude, the modern world is really not that great. You know what I mean? Like it's, think like, the year like 1300, think how crazy everything was. And the biggest, baddest dude with the biggest sword was probably the coolest guy on the block. Now it doesn't really get you that much, you get some InstaCloud or whatever, but that's not it.
No. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think some these guys that maybe go to that, and even some like the shooting class and stuff, they're maybe trying to like to capture some of that, and it's a good thing because it is natural in everyone to have that kind of like animal instinct. Like everyone has a warrior inside of them, right? Mm-hmm. No matter who you are, what side, everyone has that inside of them. It's a natural thing because we are basically we are beast. So, and I think people they're trying to like tap into that, mm-hmm. but. You don't have to pay some guy to make you do push-ups on the beach either.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. But if you do it smart, you can get paid to do that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You could have got paid to do it.
Could have. And so this question I thought was pretty interesting. Staying calm and precise under pressure, what that process looks like. But I guess this kind of a twofold or a similar type of question is when the shot really matters, time, pressure, wind, everything on the line. What's running through your head?
All right, can you go back to the first one again? Yep. I think I'm going to do these separate.
Yeah, sure. So staying calm and precise under pressure, what does your process look like in that situation?
Yeah, staying calm, it's experience, right? Knowing what you can and can't get away with, having been exposed to stuff before. the whole training thing, like the guys, think of the first dudes that went into GWAT, like where they, guys like, oh, if you haven't been like, combat, like you probably suck. Like there's a lot of dudes that haven't been to combat that are really technically savvy, that can shoot really, really well. That's not the thing. There's a lot of guys that I know that were in combat that can't shoot for shit. So, those don't always cross over or mean anything. There are guys that have done both, that are out there. But I think, if your training was tough and realistic, and you were challenged and stressed during it, I think that definitely goes a long way. That's why in basic training they scream at you and yell at you and everything else. If you're somebody that's like, I can't handle being like screamed at, like you probably don't belong in the infantry. Let's be honest. And people always say like, I went to the last hard class and stuff, but I've heard that they have definitely changed things in the way they put people in the military. When I was at the sniper school, it was peak GWAT. Like we were losing. I was losing guys that had gone to class. They're getting killed doing the job that I just taught them how to do. So it was very personal for me to give those guys everything I could. And we were, a lot of the other sniper courses out there, like, hey, you're already a SEAL. It's a gentleman's course. Or whatever we're gonna do. I'm just as an example, but it's like, hey, so you're here. We're not gonna yell at you or anything. On the Army side, we had conventional dudes that hadn't really done anything before. They're just 11 Bravos, maybe just only been in like a year or so. So we were at that time. Again, I can't speak to how it is now. I haven't been there in a long time, but we were pretty harsh. And it wasn't really a selection process, but there was definitely some people that couldn't hang. And I wouldn't want to send someone overseas with the sniper moniker, signed off by me, and they can't handle, a little ruck run or getting yelled at or something like that. So, it's the only job in the military really where as a conventional dude, you're going to go out there with just a couple guys out in enemy territory. There's nothing else like it. I remember being in Iraq, we'd 3 guys just get dropped off in a wadi in the middle of the night and out of a Humvee, slow roll, then roll out and drive away. Literally out there in the middle of the friggin' desert, walking up to a place to wait for some dudes to come plant IEDs. So as a regular, ground troop, like that's it. So, you have to be strict, and that, like, I guess being a little mean to them sometimes, but then building them back up type stuff. It was part of the course when we were there, just because of the time that it was. I don't. The commanders were not screening as well as they probably could have. They were just like, hey, we need bodies, we need snipers. And then when the sniper school graduation rates like weren't high enough, TRADOC kept lowering the standards. They kept changing. Hey, we're gonna do like a points thing now, like the total points across the entire class, and that still wasn't enough. They still weren't happy. Like, look, these are the standards that have been agreed upon for a long, long, long time, and we've always said if you can't do these things, then you can't wear the hat of a sniper. And then but the commander's like, no, we sent like all these guys and you failed a couple of them. I need all of them. So they actually stood up a course called the Long Range Marksmanship course for a little bit, and they did like, we don't need all the field craft, we don't need all the stalking and everything. I was like, are you kidding me? And then there's dudes getting like rolled up in Iraq and stuff, and that kind of went away pretty fast because we were proven right.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, so that's, and so back to the stress thing. Like I said, competition, great way to get over the stress of it. Harder training is a great way to get over it. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the 2 best ways I can think of right there.
Yeah, that's solid. And then when the shot really matters, time, pressure, wind, everything on the line, what's running through your head?
I mean, it's got to be subconscious. Like those tasks, and I know this on the sniper side, there's a little bit more, with external ballistics and wind calls and everything else, as opposed to just like, pulling the holster out at 5 yards and, getting it up there, hitting a reload or whatever you got to do. Yep. But those sniper tasks, those long range skills, the running solvers, calling wind, you kind of have to get to that same level, right? If you have enough time on the gun, you have all of the training, you should be able to instinctively do a lot of those stuff, and your process has to be there. And I see a lot. That's probably one of the biggest things. Guys know the info, right? They've watched all the videos online. They've seen their favorite YouTuber, Instagrammer talk about SPRs or wind or whatever. They've bought the books. They've got the solver on their phone. They know, they've been to a class. They can run through some drills. Where they go wrong is their process, right? So how they work through the problem from detecting the target all the way to shooting at that target. If their process is not sound, then they're not going to get the results that they want. And once you have a solid process and you're doing the steps in the proper sequence, and you know what matters and what doesn't matter, that's a huge one. I see guys, 300-yard shot, 500-yard shot. There's a lot of people talk about this too online, but dudes like running dope for a full size target at a few hundred yards away. It's like, what are you doing? Just hold this and send it. Like, holy, like what are you doing? So there is an over reliance on technology that is out there. I'm sure everyone that teaches long range stuff has kind of seen. It's like the Kestrel pacifier. It makes me feel good. It's telling me I don't have to make a choice. I do it. It's like it only does so much. I'll run dope on it, but when I'm actually out doing anything, I've seen guys run they run their laser rangefinder connected to their Kestrel. It's a Bluetooth connection, right? So then they're at a match or whatever, and they drop Bluetooth, and they don't know what to do. That's like, God, no, that's not how any of this works, guys. The Kestrel is there to help you get some numbers for conditions that maybe you don't have already or something like that, but it's not
the end all be all, right?
It's
a force multiplier.
Right? Yeah. I don't pull that stuff out unless I'm probably, at least past 600. Yeah. And inside 600, what's going to change? Inside 400, you can change everything. Guys it's more humid now. And how far are you shooting? 400 yards, absolutely doesn't matter. People don't know what matters and what doesn't matter. And that's one of the first things I try and show them in a class is, hey, this matters to here. This doesn't matter until here. With this gun and the job you have, this doesn't matter at all. Just freaking forget about it. Because
go ahead. Sorry.
They get this info overload, right? They're reading all these blogs, they're seeing all these posts on the gram, they're watching YouTube videos, and there's just so much information. And I think that's the job of a good instructor, right? Can you be that funnel that knows all this, but knows how much time you have, how much training time you have, what your job is, and how to basically get everything you need to know in here, and where I'm not worried about things I don't need to worry about.
Yeah. So even in the Marines, when we shoot our known distance range out to 500 yards, the only thing we're holding for or changing is we're just taking a note of the wind direction, and that's still pretty minimal for the 5.56 cartridge out at 500 yards. So it's knowing what matters, that's extremely important. That's solid. Cool, man. So, let's move on to a little bit about the training and development. What are this is actually a pretty fun one, I think. Some of the biggest training myths that people fall for, especially from social media. What are some of the ones you've seen?
Training myths. There's a lot of bad info out there. There's a lot of things that need to die. For some reason, the good things on social media don't stay, good techniques. Mm-hmm. Someone will do a bad technique or a goofy thing, and it just spreads like wildfire, because they haven't seen it before. So it's like, ooh, that's new, that's novel, that's cool. Guys shooting really kind of leaning back and shooting. That's not how you want to shoot at all. You want to have aggressive forward stance so you can control the recoil and you can move from point to point. Yeah. But you'll see it, and a lot of things come from places. And guys don't know when to stop using that tactic or that technique. There's a certain, there's instructors out there. They teach certain things, but it's really designed for a certain context. And then you'll see guys using that same thing everywhere. I think probably one of my favorite examples is guys shooting carbines, and now I've seen SMGs, PDWs, everything. But they instead of grabbing the grip like you're supposed to. They put their thumb on this side of the gun. Because they don't know where it comes from, but everyone's seen it. Everyone's doing it. I've seen pictures online. I'm not exaggerating. I think there's a picture of a girl on one of the websites with a MP7, with her thumb on this side of it. It's like, what are you doing? So where that comes from is so a bolt gun and a gas gun, obviously they're very different animals. So on a bolt gun, so think like the Mark 13, right? Back when it had the AI stock, the thumb hole stock on it, 300 meg. So to put my thumb back through that hole, it ate time.
Yeah.
So guys would start to leave their thumb on out of the hole and along the side of the action.
Sure.
Because I don't have a follow-up shot anyways, right? And the lock time of a bolt gun is very, very different. It's a very heavy system. Some of those weigh 15 pounds. And once you add up everything that's on the damn thing. So the firing pin on the bolt gun just moves straight in. All right, the spring pushes it. It's very different on a gas gun, right? So I have, as we know, the gun starts moving before the bullet has left that barrel. Mm-hmm. So on a gas gun, you have to shoot it different. You can't run it the same. So guys that had grown up on those rifles, when the M110s and all that stuff first started to come out, guys started, keeping their thumb on this side of it because, hey, had an ambi safety, so I could just kind of keep it there. Yeah. If you're doing that, you're leaving control on the table. So on a gas gun, it's not just a straight in firing pin. You have a hammer that moves like this. So if you ever dry fired your gun, no matter how steady you get your AR or your large frame, gas gun, when you dry fire, you're going to see your reticle when you hit it. That's that hammer, right? That camming action, that weight of that coming forward, hitting the back of that bolt carrier, and then just there's things unlocking and moving and everything inside that gun that's going off. So you have to control that gun more than you do a bag bolt action rifle. And it started there. It started in the guys teaching shooting gas guns probably in the mill, and it's trickled down. But now it's not even precision type rifles. Now it's everything. I see guys on the range doing carbine classes, like night vision carbine stuff, and they'll take their thumb and move it over here to put the weapon on and off safe, and then come back. Do you understand how inefficient that is? Why are you even doing that? Guys will argue oh well, it's less input. What do you mean? You need that? Would you ever shoot your Glock without your thumb behind the back strap? Well, no. All right. Well, why not? Because what's going to happen? The gun's going to move more, right? Yeah, of course. Of course I get it. You have even like an SPR. You've got a bipod. You've got a rear bag. The weight to gun, the trigger weight to gun weight ratio is switched with the pistol to the long gun. But to me, it still applies, and it's absolutely probably one of my biggest pet peeves. But yeah, there's 1,000 things like that are out there that guys think they need something because they see somebody else doing it or someone else has it on their gun. And to me, it's the wrong answer. Barricade stops is another one. They'll put a barricade stop way out at the end of their rail, right? Yeah. I have a barricade stop all the way at the end of my rail, and I push that on the barricade. Now, what is that doing to my body, right? It's rotating me off drastically. So now my shoulders, hips aren't in line with the gun, right? Yeah. So generally doing stuff like that, if I'm shooting from a supported position, whether it's a bipod or barricade, a bag, tripod, whatever, I need to be square, all right? Because what I'm trying to do when I'm looking through that optic and I'm looking at that target, when I break that shot, I want that gun to move as little as possible, and I want it to move a certain way, and I want it to return to where it was when the shot broke, right? If it does that naturally, I can reduce how much it jumps. When that reticle settles back in, I can catch either trace, I can catch splash, whether it's dirt or something else. I can catch target effects. It could be anything. It could be like my bullet could hit like a concrete wall and I see a little pockmark appear, right? But that's info that I need for my follow-up shot. And with a gas gun, I can send that really fast. So, the time that bullet that gets there, that guy just hears that bullet, the second bullet's already coming.
Right. Yeah.
Before he can even react, the second bullet's already on the way. As long as I'm doing my job efficiently. Yeah. Again, everything I talk a lot from kind of like a martial, background here, because military. I've done in the military. I've done in law enforcement. So that's my primary. And guys well, I'm in the comp role. Yeah, but you probably still would want to know how to do it. You know what I mean? If the country, if we got invaded or something, like the Red Dawn scenario or end of the world, whatever you want to call it, that's still, I don't care what you say. There's still a reason why you're buying guns and using guns. That falls back in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to your, shooting with your let's say your dominant thumb on the dominant side of the gun. Yeah. One guy I know, he says he likes that because of the natural, he can pull the trigger faster if his thumb is on this side versus on the left side of the grip, is what he's all about. And, I also get like, okay, cool, like shooting fast is fun, but accuracy is everything kind of thing. And then being able to control the gun. So, I don't know about the body mechanics, if that's necessarily true. Like maybe it is, but also if you learn your gun and you learn where your reset is and then not, slapping the trigger and actually learning a good follow through and a good trigger pull, good trigger release, you can shoot pretty quick. Fast is impressive, but fast and accurate is more impressive.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I'm all about speed. Hands down, but you've got to hit too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to hit, got to hit the important stuff.
Yep. So going back to training here, we talked a little bit about some of the myths. How do you build fundamentals with students? What do you focus on first? Like what's the first fundamental? I mean, obviously safety's up there, things like that, but I guess
safety, obviously, safety brief and stuff like that. But no matter what class I teach, it starts with the fundamentals, of everything. You have to understand the basics. And like this past class I taught, the carbine class, a lot of guys are like, man, I hadn't really shot like that from the prone before. Like the prone, like for a carbine, it's very important because it's the most stable I'm ever going to be. Right. My whole body's is into contact with the ground, which is where we get that's where our stability comes from. Right. So we can, if we rest the magazine on the ground or, we have a bipod or whatever we're doing, that's the most stable. We have rear back. That's the best I'm ever going to be as far as stable. So my wobble zone should be the smallest. So my recoil control theoretically should be very, very good. So that now when I go down range, I look at the paper and I say, okay, this is what this gun, this shooter, this ammo are capable of, right? Now that I know what they're capable of, as we start taking away stuff like support, like, hey, now you're shooting sling supported kneeling. Now you're doing it on the move. As all this, now we know what you can get back to, right? So that very first, assessment of what those three things can do: gun, ammo, shooter, at that distance, and calibrating that system, right? The whole zero process. I'm a huge stickler on that. I've gone to classes. I've talked to people that have taken classes. Like, yeah, we fire a couple rounds. If you're close, you're good. They move on and they start the hose fest. I'm very much aware. We spend a little bit of time on day one of carbine, just learning the system. And it helps. Like, and the huge improvement. Like the guys that were shooting, and those guys, like I said, they're like, yeah, I haven't really shot much prone. I haven't done this much detail into prone, and lining that all up, getting them set. There are groups that 50 yards started like this, and then pretty soon they're like this, and then okay, so now we know what you can get to, and as we start making everything harder, now we know theoretically what you can get back to, and you can figure it out. So just
good
learn
baseline. Yeah.
It's a solid baseline. It's calibrating that system. that rifle, the optic, the ammo. The shooter, like teaching them, and there's so many, you've heard me talk about this before, but all the little things that can affect, like the parallax in the optic, the eye pro, the clear covers in the back of the aim point, guys like willy-nilly, if they have that thing up or down on an aim point, T2 or whatever, and it's like, no, that can be like a 1 mil shift in your group.
Making sure that your suppressor is tight on your muzzle and how that can change your point of impact.
Yes. That's a huge thing. Guys think, hey, I take this can, I can have it on, I can hand it off. It doesn't make a difference. Like, no, that's a big difference. That's usually a good suppressor with a good mount, good ammo. You're probably talking at least a half mil shift between can on, can off.
Right.
For everybody else, that's like, say 2 inches at 100 yards shift.
Yeah.
Guys like, oh, well, that doesn't matter. Like if you're shooting and that doesn't matter to you, that's fine. But that would drive me absolutely crazy because now I'm a half mil off everywhere.
Right.
But yeah,
I want to say, kind of thinking back to a previous question about what's kind of going through your mind when you're, under pressure, distance shots, stuff like that. Having, been in that situation before, we were shooting a couple, like with my buddy Texas Planking, like some 50 BMGs out to a mile, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Had a great spotter. He's doing it. He's doing all the work for me. All I got to do is line the sights up and listen to the input that he's telling me.
Right.
I legitimately just go right down to the fundamentals. The very first thing is breathing and then that trigger pull.
Yeah.
And it's finding that break. So that way, when he says, send it by that out of the second send it, that gun, it's gone, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like I want to make sure that I'm getting that shot off as quick as possible as when my spotter is telling me to send it. And so it's really, for me, that breathing control and trigger control. That's really what it comes down to. And obviously the fundamentals are such a huge thing.
Your breath is a part of that, and your breath, out of all the things that happen to you when you get that stress response, right? Your vision, your dexterity, your, where the blood goes in your body, all that chemical reaction, your hearing, maybe that you have a auditory exclusion or not, tunnel vision, everything that happens, your breathing is the only one of the things that you can actually affect. So that's why, breathing, that part of the process is very important, because it can help you reduce all those effects of adrenaline that you're feeling. Whether you're in the tree stand and that buck just walked out there and you're having buck fever, which is adrenaline dump, right? You're out in a gunfight, adrenaline dump, shooting competition, right? That also could be the same. So again, the more you do all of those things, you probably have way less of a stress response on your 30th year than you do your first year when you're out hunting, right? So it's the same thing with competition. It's the same thing with gunfights. Like, you just get used to that stuff. I remember when I was a cop, it's pretty new on the job, and like, they was all freaking out. It's like, what's going on? Like, oh, there's a guy's got like a handgun. It's like, one dude, just one handgun? I was like, that's it. It's just 3 months prior, where we're in a freaking gunfight in a valley, fighting 100 freaking Taliban or something. So with PKMs and RPGs and everything else. So it's all relative. And it was kind of funny, like going from that, from going from Afghanistan to the domestic LE world. And someone said, like, could that guy kill you? Of course he could, like, obviously. But it was just my level of give a fuck, I guess, just wasn't. It wasn't as wrapped up as everybody else's,
Yeah, which is great. That's such a a valuable thing to have, though, like that, a virtue, if you will, just being able to stay calm. Just staying calm is and like you said, getting that experience and to kind of help with that and trying to up the stress when and where you can. That makes sense. We're obviously not saying go get into gunfights so that way you'll be level-headed in a gunfight, that no, but at the same time, like, if you can induce that stress at the range, even just bringing a shot timer, just hearing that beep and knowing that the clock is counting down, or that it's and you're just trying to get shots, like, hey, 5 shots within 5 inches at 50 yards, go. Right. And how fast can you do it? Like, oh crap. Okay. That's going to induce stress. Can I get that far? And then the moment that you realize you can't get that far, get to where you can do that. Maybe it's, 5 shots within 20 yards within 5 inches. Now all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm ringing that all day long. Then start finding your point of failure and get to the point where it's no longer a point of failure, but a point of success every single time. And now you keep, I guess, in a way, just extending your baseline there. Right. Oh, yeah. So stuff like that's pretty cool. Right. Still about the training here, but kind of going to the sexes here. Do you find it easier to train men or women, and why do you think that is?
Geez.
I know, obviously, predominantly you probably have trained more men. It's more of a male-dominated field, more of a male-dominated hobby. Not to say that there aren't women in this. Obviously, there are. Right. It's a growing hobby and a growing right, or I guess you could say concern for women to arm themselves, and they're seeking more and more training. So, back to the question, which one do you find it easier to train?
There is nuance to it, right? And again, I could split this up between like open enrollment, military, law enforcement, so there's a lot to kind of unpack in this question. Women are generally, especially newer shooters, right? They're very open to techniques. Mm-hmm. There's no ego involved when they want to learn something like shooting. They very much so. They listen. They're very receptive. Whereas there's a little more like kind of like macho-ness with some guys on the range, where they're like, hey, I know what I'm doing. Like, trust me, I've been shooting for this many years, and I know, so they don't. Not every guy likes to be coached and told that they're doing something wrong, or they could be doing something better. There's like an ego thing to it. So in that respect, I would say, yes, women are generally more receptive to training and coaching, and willing to implement it easier as if they don't have preconceived like notions, right? There's women out there that not take anything from like bravery. Like there's women that signed up and knew they were going to war, and got blown up in the IED or got in a gunfight, and that's not, you can't, I'm not gonna say that they're less brave or something. I've been in a gunfight and had a female lieutenant, like a couple trucks over, shooting at the same bad guys as me, without freaking out or anything else, doing a very good job. So I've seen that now on the physicality side, right? There's people, I don't care what people say. There's a difference between your average size male, your average size female, and the inherent strength in there, right? Especially grip strength. If you took a random sample of 100 men and 100 women and had them do a grip test thing, I would bet, if I was a betting man, I would say I would pick the guys as having the higher, average grip strength. And that's just the way it is. Of course, there's outliers in there. There's chicks that need bread or something, and so they have like super strong hands. And there's a guy that just types on his laptop all day, watching TV, whatever. But as a general rule, right? So the grip strength thing can definitely hinder and make it more challenging for women to get like the same control of a gun, especially something like a handgun, right? And run it as hard and as fast as your average male can, right? Again, that's barring equally PT time, all that stuff, as opposed to, hey, this guy's completely out of shape, but just a really in shape woman. We're talking across the board averages here. So that's something that I have seen. It doesn't mean they don't want to go faster or whatever. My daughter is a teenager. She's been shooting since she was 3. And it's amazing what she can do. I put her through my 15, 16 years old, like my full SWAT sniper qualification, right? Guys like, that's kind of mean. Like, no, it's great. I remember I would take her out snowshoeing. We'd go out in the woods. I'd make her carry a rifle or something like it. She loves to shoot. I have a MP5. She loves to shoot that thing. It's probably her favorite.
Makes sense.
And so she, we come back in and like, oh, there's targets on the hill, or steel targets set up, and like from she's tagging 12-inch plates 200 yards with a 9mm subgun, which pretty much
Awesome.
I've got on video, right? So she learned from the beginning the proper way to line the sights and pull the trigger, and that goes a long way. Now if I handed her a Glock 40 cal, would she be able to run that as efficiently as someone that sits at home doing Captain's of Crush all day long, whatever it is, right? Could she get there? Potentially, maybe, but the skill is definitely there. There is, due to general strength and muscle mass and everything else, there is a difference in the performance side. And I think if you look at any shooting competition, you'll see that come out in the numbers, right? So yeah, that's just the way it is. So I say more receptive, a little bit more physical challenges based on strength.
Yeah, makes sense. Next question we've got was balancing safety with realism in civilian classes. I can tell you, having taken quite a few classes myself, one class I took, I thought was really cool. I liked this. I would like to actually get your opinion on it. But for instance, all the shooters there were pretty experienced shooters. That was everybody's background in this one class with Chris Peranto. He's, from everybody watching, might recognize him from like 13 Hours and stuff like that, Benghazi. But anyway, this was, I think we probably had about, I can't even remember, about maybe 10 active, sounds weird to say, but active shooting students, I'll say that, in this class. And we were doing, we each had our own lane with about maybe 10 yards of separation between each student and big open field, right? We started at 100 yards and you move at your own pace. And so I might be, 20 yards from the target, but there might be a shooter behind me that's 40, 50 yards from the target. And the entire mindset was, look, we're going to be, I don't want to say blurring the lines, but all of us are experienced shooters. If you maintain your, situation or your lateral limits, everybody's going to be safe. Everybody's going to be fine. And then you have a series of events to lead to a disaster taking place, like keeping your finger on the trigger when you're not ready to fire, not being aware of where your muzzle's pointed, not keeping your weapon on safe, shit like that, right? I thought it was really interesting and cool. that we were, allowed to kind of move with that type of separation between each student and, that type of distance. But where are your thoughts, again, balancing safety with realism in civilian classes?
Civilian classes is it's definitely different, right? The whole like liability side of it, and you don't want to give the gun training industry a bad name. Be that example, be the one that somebody can point to and say, oh, look, we told you they're out of control and they're unsafe, and we need to really restrict this gun training that's going on all over the country. You don't want to be that guy. You probably don't want to also pay out a lot of money. So there's a balance there. Like, hey, this is cool. Is this worth it? It's hard for you to imagine what you're saying. I have seen guys do that with like people go stand on range and stuff like that. Again, I'm not sure there's a benefit there that's worth that risk. That's something I think, because all it takes is, and I've actually seen I've seen range things go bad, right? I was on there. I've seen. I mean, if I 5-round hit things on the range and do 90 degrees and zip 3 guys in the pits on a mill range. I've seen. I had one dude who's I think it was a Fed, and he's doing a drill on the range and he knows everything. So to shoot a certain number of rounds, which would run him dry, transition the pistol, shoot his pistol, reholster pistol, get the gun back up in action, right?
Sure.
So he shoots his rifle rounds. He lets it sling. Didn't go to safe like I told him. Holsters or gets a handgun. Does his work with that. Reholsters. Goes back to the rifle. Bang. Right. So either his finger hit the trigger or his kit hit the trigger, but he wasn't empty and he wasn't unsafe. Right. So missed my foot by probably a few inches. I got hit with rocks and spall and everything else. So like the whole safety, people get all worked up about the safety thing. Like, going to safety, if it can go on, is a pretty important thing. Cause it's not in the holster. It's not like it's a handgun. Be like, oh, Glocks don't have safeties. Yeah, that thing's not just floating around in your kit either.
Shouldn't be.
Yeah. So, and other examples, of safety. So I've seen people doing shooting on the move stuff. And I think it's kind of like similar to what you're saying. But a person like stumbles, like they didn't see something on the ground, like hit like a curb, like. Not intentionally. Yes, you intentionally. You should be able to just stay on your target. However, if you trip and as you fall, you're still holding the gun, and now that rifle goes off, and you tapped Steve in the head over there type thing. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be worth it. That's why some stuff in civilian classes. That's why you do it with sims or something like that. That effect. Yeah. Right? That's something you practice in your buddies at home, back in the Corey, people that you trust. You know what I mean? Especially because you really don't know. Like open enrollment class, anybody can show up. I love teaching regular citizens just how to run their guns. Like I absolutely love doing that. Yeah. However, I've seen some weirdos show up. You know what I mean? I've seen some people that really unsafe. People that really. Should have been in a basic, like this is how you load the gun class, show up for like an advanced like carbine, like type thing. So
their mindset's probably thinking, oh, I'm going to learn the basics and get to that advanced all within 8 hours, and it's like don't work that way.
Yeah, and it's really the gun handling. It's the safety, the handling. Like you have to be truly comfortable with it. Yeah. Before you start doing stuff like that. And if I had like a 2-week course, like a really long type thing where I can see everyone, I know everyone's comfortable, but your usual open enrollment class is like what, 1-2 days, some are 3 to 5. But I'm not sure I would risk something like that. Again, I've seen rounds do crazy things. That's why all the vehicle stuff we did, I think I showed you that Surefire thing, like, hey, remember we're talking about clearing your sights, height over bore around all these angles on the cars. All right, right here, this is a bullet mark where the guy did not clear his sights all the way and he was on the wrong side of the car. And when he shot, it just skipped along his bodywork and then went right between two of his buddies that were a little bit further down range. So, you have to balance it all. There's no point in who wants to die at a freaking carbine class, not me.
Yeah, right. No. Actually, you called me out because again, I was actually bounding with my buddy Luke from the firearms blog. We were
Yeah.
doing the bailout. I was driver's side, he was passenger side, and he just moved back. And I thought I'd do something kind of cool and shoot like between the rear window, between the pillar, and between like the front side view mirror.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I'm clear. I know I am. And then you're like, nope, stop. You just sent 2 rounds right into the pillar. I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, those didn't hit their target, did they? He's like, no, not at all. And so that was, yeah, again, you learn these things, right? And so I thought I was being slick and like maintaining a low profile, not sneaking out from the side of the car, only to realize, I probably should have just snuck out the side of the car and actually made contact with my target.
Now the bad guy didn't get hit. You wasted 2 rounds, and maybe those went into somebody that you didn't want to hit. So
right. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. Good safety. We were all safe there. But again, it's that real world type of training that's so cool. And I know that's what you're setting up with Ben Franklin Range, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So we've got. So I went down there. He's been open a few years. It's a pretty awesome facility. There's not much like it in the northeast part of the country. It's like 1,100 acres. It was an old like coke mine way back in the day, not like the like the coke like, but they have the ovens like it built into the side of the hills, and they're cooking minerals and stuff, whatever they tell everybody to eat. So it was that, and then it was an off-road park. So there's 70 miles of like off-road trails with hill climbs and everything else that's there. So that's a pretty cool feature. Open terrain, there's water there. And then so when the guy that owns it, Ryan, and his dad there, they put in a sim shoot house. They got a bunch of flat ranges. They've got a cabin that you can basically like stay in at the night, so you don't have to go get a hotel. It's incredibly reasonably priced. They have some long range stuff. And then when I kind of met them, went down there, check it out and everything, and came up with some ideas. So I helped them kind of like redesign a lot of the long range snipery stuff.
So cool. And
there's shots out that you can shoot out to 2,000. You could change the angles, and because again, it's like almost like a giant geographic like bowl that it's in. So you can shoot all over the place. And there's tons of steel out there. There's known distance, unknown distance. There's numerous prop lines, a 500-yard flat range. There's several square ranges. We've got cars and props. It's everything. It's a full featured training facility.
Oh, yeah, that's super cool. But yeah, having those different barricades to shoot, through, around, stuff like that, so important. Yeah. And then I tell people this all the time: hide over bore. Hide over bore is so, like, obviously, and I just in a recent video I was shooting one of my AKs and talking about the Zivuk silencer, and I show like one of the barricades, the barrel that I'm shooting behind. I'm like, okay, hey, look, I put my muzzle right up on it, but I show like my sights clearing it. It's like if I were to pull the trigger right now, I'm not only destroying this barricade, but I'm using it as a tabletop. So I got magazines sitting there, rounds and stuff like that. I'm like, so I'm destroying all of that too, potentially. And again, you're talking about a twig throwing the trajectory of a projectile, especially at distance. You can only imagine what an actual barricade might do. And then you're talking about, seeing M855 make a 90-degree turn. Like that's incredible stuff. And so bullets, they don't just go straight through things, they deflect. So keep that in mind. Of course, paper, it might go straight through. A car, not so much. So pretty wild to think about.
And then
move on. Yeah, go ahead.
Everyone that's ever done a mil 249 range at night with tracers, you've seen what bullets do.
Yeah. Tracers are incredible. Obviously they work both ways, so you can see where your rounds are going. Enemy combatants can see where the rounds are coming from. But at the same time, it's seeing those impacts you're talking about. And guys, just like watch on YouTube, or just Google live fire night shoot, right? There's always, you can even see like just not even tracer rounds, but rounds that are skipping and sparking or just heating up from friction and impact that are going off in different directions. But it's crazy to watch. Yeah, the tracers though. I mean, and you're like, no wonder if you're doing a shoot like that, you need sometimes hundreds of acres of clearance going all around you. It's just being accountable for all that ammo that's going God knows where. So pretty wild.
Yep.
Let's see here. Pressure and failure. Next topic of some questions we got here. How failure shaped your development, lessons learned the hard way. I guess a lot of people are saying like, what are some I guess, hard lessons that you've learned throughout your career and training and competition and everything else that, you've done and all the different experiences you've experienced? What are some of the best lessons you've taken away from them?
I mean, you have to push yourself until you fail, because you have to know where the limits are in everything you do, if you go out and you shoot every drill, for example, and you just, I cleaned it, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. You're not getting better. You have to push yourself until the wheels fall off, right? No matter, and that can apply in several different ways, right? But once you've seen where you can push, now I know my limits, and now I tell guys like, hey, usually where I go wrong, and I'm doing like a demo in front of a bunch, like, hey, this is how we do it. I'm like, man, I really want to go like 100%, but you kind of going 105, 110%, and then you shank around or something, So I'll tell myself, and I tell other people, it's like, hey, like, give me 90%, and oh, okay, and like when they apply that like 90%, everything is just smoother. I'm not saying go slow. Like I'm not saying, smooth, slow is smooth, or, I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying like, there's spastic, and a lot of guys they go like spastic speed as opposed to controlled speed. And if you tell a guy, hey, just back off 10% of your spastic speed, that's usually like a sweet spot where you're going really fast and getting your hits really good.
Mm-hmm. That's my biggest thing, is when I can be accurate, and then the moment I start getting complacent, I'm like, okay, I'm in a rhythm here. I'm going fast. And then my target transitions, I'm still going good. Then I'm like, let me kick it up a little bit more. Then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, miss, crap.
Yeah.
Like hit 8 or 9 consecutive targets, 100%. And then those last 3, I'm just like miss. I'm just like, okay, now it's time to throttle and slow down and find that sweet spot that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
and you definitely have to train, right? And that's where you see it. Like that's not something you can figure out on the street. So, say like you're at a USPSA match, and you have 3 berms, around you, all 10 feet of sand with targets everywhere. Like that's a great place to push and see like what you can do and get away with. And I can just go as fast as I can. Like on the street, like I've seen videos like this where the cops like chasing the bad guy and like shooting out the windshield, but there's like passing buildings and people in cars. It's like, that's not the place to really do that. You know what I mean? Like I think people forget kind of, like I said, there's context to everything, and everyone, there's a lot of people will say like, context doesn't matter. It's all just sights and trigger, and just being as efficient. Like it kind of does matter, right? If I have a safe background or don't I? The real world, people forget it's kind of this like 3-dimensional thing, and there's not just you and the bad guy. There's usually, thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of other people like in that general area that probably don't want to take your bullets. If you look at a lot of the big cities and a lot of their shootings, it's almost the norm for a couple of bystanders to get hit.
Yeah.
And that's, it's really unacceptable. And those cities are probably also the ones that have the least firearms training time. Those people, those cops are probably lucky to get 1 or 2 quals in a year, and that's their training, which it's not. It's a test for admin. But yeah,
what's for when those things are going bad, like let's say in a class, and you've got a student that is just not doing what needs to be done as far as hitting target, making accurate shots, things like that. How do you teach shooters to stay confident when things aren't going their way?
Let's see. I mean, it's a very nuanced thing, right? Because people have different styles, right? Some people are very easily, and that's one of the things I could probably be better at is understanding people's different styles. I think I am good at that, but as far as, I guess, like not understanding or not recognizing at the time, like how like a comment can kind of like hurt someone, I guess, a little bit more. In firearms training, right? It's as long as you're safe, right? I want to try and like generally build you up. Like if you're violating safety, like I'll do whatever, grab you, whatever, pull a gun in your hand, kick you out of class, whatever it's got to be. But I think maybe like kind of like crushing someone's like soul, like they thought they were like, you know what I mean? They thought they were doing something good. It's like, oh no, you just suck. So I've definitely gotten better. Like humor is a great way to kind of like diffuse that type of stuff. Like kind of like, like poke them, but like say it in like a funny, like sarcastic way, that usually seems to be the best. But yeah, I'd never like openly like mock a student or something that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what's the dude on Simpsons? Like, ha ha. Like,
Oh, right. Yeah.
you don't want to do that. You're probably not gonna have many paying customers. But yeah, some people you can get away with that a little more if you kind of know them, and then some people it's like encouragement. Hey, good job, man, good job, and being able to kind of like recognize those different personality styles. Take some practice. It does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally get that. But no, I find, again, the getting to know your students is always extremely important, and being able to joke, have that humor, and then finding the guys that can actually really like take it, and then they do it to themselves.
Yeah.
I know I'm the first to be like, I walk up to my target, I just turn back around, I'm like, well, that fucking sucked. And I'm like, like, okay. And then you can kind of learn like, okay, well, hey, here's what you did do good though. Like you were at least quick. It would have been good if you actually hit the target, but you were fast. And finding that humor is definitely a good thing to have.
Yeah. And if you're with like a bunch of like grunts on the range, like you expect that, you know what I mean? So sometimes you get out in the range and you're kind of like, hey, this is just like being with all the grunts back in the military again. And we're just going to like, break each other's balls and, poke each other and everything else. And then you realize that, hey, there's like half this class is like doctors and lawyers and stuff. People are like really good at their job and like really not getting, they're not used to anybody telling them that they suck or they can't do something. Right.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to have a constructive way of kind of telling them that, as opposed to just treating them like another, like a private on the range in the military.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Very true. Let's roll into gear, man. So we talked a little bit about like the technology stuff like that. What is some gear that people might overvalue or simply misunderstand that you've seen?
Overvalue. Yeah, we did talk about like the Kestrel and the apps and stuff like that. That definitely, like, you have to have them. You have to know how to run it, but you can't put all your eggs in one basket type thing. Trying to think, like people, like Americans, American gun people, they generally like to tweak with, and mess with things and like, like I've got to customize it and everything. And that's probably been going on since the beginning of time with the first bow. The guy's probably like, I'm going to tweak this thing here and, put this and, steam it so it looks like this and make my arrows look like this. Where humans are all generally the same. Yeah. You've seen my guns. They're beat the crap. They're all, half of them, spray painted and mixed matched. And I don't care what they look like, right? Do they work? Is it functional? Like everything else is secondary. But guys are always trying to achieve, hey, I want a little bit better. I want to make it a little easier to shoot. I want a little more mechanical advantage. And so what they start doing is they start, tweaking stuff on their gun, and usually it's not for the better. They're chasing this infinitesimal gain, and the cost usually is reliability of the entire system. Glock. Like I never change a spring in a Glock. They all work just fine. I promise. Like, springs, aftermarket triggers. Usually the two easy ones that I see, like just don't mess with that stuff. Like just leave it. But guys want a little bit lighter trigger pull. When you change one spring in the Glock, it affects how all the other ones work. It's like a symbiotic system, the way it loads the gun. So that's probably one of the most common things I see.
Well, yeah, one thing that comes to mind is, this happened at a class with you actually. I like the concept and I like the idea of, ironically called 100 Concepts or 100 Concepts. They're the guys that make, let's see here. I got one of them, like these things, right? So the kill flash, all that type of stuff. They've got the ones on the lights that flip to the side and all that type of fun stuff. And at a class with you, you were working on something. I was loading my gun out, and somebody was having an issue. And the way the kill flash on the light was mounted was ultimately hindering, trying to set up the rifle for the shooter. You're like, can I just take this thing off? I'm like, yeah, dude, it's fine. Just rip it off. So I think a lot of people might get, like into the weeds about like, the kill flash and then having that light reflect, when somebody's looking. And I think a lot of that might come from the entire Call of Duty thing, where it's like, no matter what, no matter what direction you're looking, you can point out a sniper because you can see the glint or the glare from their scope. And it's like, is it a thing? Yes. Is it something that so many people need to be concerned about? Probably not. What are your thoughts?
No, absolutely not. Even in the military. So there's a science to those kill flashes, right? So the material that it's made out of, has to be like a certain type of like non-reflective stuff. The shape and the size of the honeycomb, the depth of the honeycomb, all of that stuff is like a math formula, right? And it's literally physics of light and lenses. And the Tenebrex ones, those are the ones that make the military contract ones that I've ever been issued. If you look at those, they're much deeper and they're a much finer honeycomb. There's way more little squares than there is on a lot of this aftermarket 3D printed. Guys are just are printing honeycombs, but they're not. There's no sciencey part of it, right? They're just slapping them on there. And people don't understand, the honeycomb reduces your optical clarity. Like, you are not seeing as good with that honeycomb in front of your glass as you are when it's not there. So does it really matter? Do you really need it? Even doing sniper stuff overseas, that thing only went on when I was in position and the sun was in front of me. Otherwise, it comes off because it's keeping me from seeing things. If I'm in the long range game, I've got a magnified optic on my rifle. I'm looking for the tiniest thing to correct my shots, right? Even before I shoot, I'm looking for the tiniest thing to make wind calls with. I'm looking for a bit of mirage off the top of a car or a rooftop. I'm looking for, maybe clothes are out, hanging, how those are moving. There's a camel walking and it's kicking up dust, and how that camel, what speed that dust is moving at. After I shoot, right? Am I going to be able to catch the trace of the round, right, as it's flying through the air? The impact of the round, that effects on target, splash if I miss, and sometimes just all you have is a little twig or a little piece of grass that just kind of falls. You're not going to catch that if it's not perfect lighting conditions. So think true field environment. It might be a cloudy day. It might be early in the morning, late at night. It's already kind of dark, and now I have that stupid thing on there when I don't need it, and it's keeping me from seeing things that I need to see. And those things like exploded out of nowhere. It's like I made a post on Instagram. I was like, the Fieldcraft bros. Like they're seeing these things again without the context of like, hey, maybe there's a time and place for this. Maybe I don't need it all the time, because dudes are printing on everything.
Yeah. So this is the one that is actually issued, to the military. This guy here. So you can tell it's further away from the optic. On the ACOG, and extremely fine. Really fine honeycomb that you see there. So I figured I'd just kind of show that, and you do that in comparison to the other one that I showed, and this one, still not bad. I mean, it's actually pretty bad. You can definitely see that. Granted, this is a non-magnified optic, so things closer to the lens will pick up easier. But it's one of those things where if you don't know what the bend and aiming concept is, and then keeping both eyes open during shooting, and even with the cover closed on an aim point or something like that, still being able to make hits on target. If a lot of people will see this and be like, that's a huge distraction and definite no for me, which again totally makes sense. And I honestly, there's the cool factor, it looks cool, but as far as it being practical and actually truly useful, I think, like you said, it's a very small percentage of people that will actually find that they need something like that. I could understand the flashlight one, being maybe a little bit more, so that way you don't have a negligent discharge of white light. But also that just comes down to knowing your gear, and maybe don't run pressure pads if you're not comfortable with it, type of thing. So I get it both ways, but I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, and that's why I like Surefires, like the Vampires have the lockout head. There's a white light, there's an iron, there's an off. You can put it in off.
I have it right here, actually. Ironically enough, there's there it is, on the off setting. So and then the caps, I run on my sniper DM guns. I run a Butler Creek, flip up cap on there, so I can close that if I'm worried about a white light ND or something like that. Yeah, exactly. So those work as well. So let's get into, as we're talking about, now everyday shooters, civilians, things like that, who probably aren't going to need kill flashes most of the time. What lessons from sniper methodology apply to hunters, or on a completely different spectrum, home defenders?
Yeah, and this goes back to one of the earlier questions too. The big one is seeing. Right, guys. There's a lot of guys that are really good at shooting. Right, they're really good at doing the math and calling wind and everything else. But actually finding concealed targets, scanning, detecting. That's like that. There is a science, like an absolute science to that stuff, and how your brain works, how your eyes work, understanding that. The whole point of camouflage is to go against how your brain and how your eyes work together, right? So there's a reverse to that, which is the target detection process, and there's an entire science to that that you have to do. You have to practice it, guys. Like you've probably seen like the sniper school TD exercise where they put the students online and they go and they hide some objects in the woods and they have a certain amount. They have to draw a picture and then plot where they found all the items. And the instructor goes out and shows them, okay, this is here and this is here. You should have seen this. Like it was like running those and setting those up for so many years was huge help for me. Huge.
Yeah.
Because it changes the way your brain works. It changes the way your brain looks for things. So many people just scan right by. People have horrible situational awareness anyways, but then put something camouflaged out there that's trying to hide from them, and it 99% of people just walk right by stuff that it's freaking amazing. When I went to the International Comp, like I said, one of the events was a TD. So they had items that they had hidden out there, and you had a certain amount of time. You had to find them, and you had to like mill them and get the range right. And so when they took you to a different range, and it was like, hey, so target 6 is the same distance as the RPG was. So if you didn't find the RPG, right, you didn't have time to you couldn't mill it, laze it, like nothing. Like you just had to like go and shoot it. So I think we did really well. I think coming out of day 2 and the year I won, I want to say we were pretty close to the top, if not the top, because of that exercise, because I found almost every item.
Wow.
I was like, or more than everybody else had. And then when I got to Afghanistan, it was huge because you're in all these valleys. There's trees everywhere. It's not like just big open area like Iraq was. And I was spotting guys like all the time. I'm like, oh, there's a dude on that ridge. Like people are like, what? Are you crazy? I'm like, no, watch, get the bino. I was like, holy cow, and it's like, and it was just because I was, again, that route, like the whole like Okoka thing or Oakok or whatever the hell the military calls it. They change the order of the letters every few years, right? But observation and concealment, right? Key terrain, avenues of approach. Like when you analyze terrain like that and apply the visual principles that I'm talking about here, it makes a huge difference, right? So knowing where people should be and then knowing what it looks like when someone's there. And honestly, the background, like people, like when you're trying to hide, like background is generally more important than what's in front of you. And I saw it 1,000 times. There'd be a hill, a grassy hill, and the sniper students come up and they try and look like the grass because that's between them and the like target truck, right? Where the guys are sitting with the binos looking for them. But behind the hill, right, this feature here is all like scrub oak or something like that. So as soon as they start popping up, you just see a perfect line of grass with a bump of grass and then more grass, right? It's like, that was the wrong answer, bro. Like, so the guys that were smart, they look behind them and be like, oh, when I come up out of this veg, I'm going to have a background of this, like this scrub oak stuff. So, right. So they would put that in their ghillie hood and they would then come up and they blended right into the background. And that is the key to hiding, or one of the many keys, but it's probably my one free tip here.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, we saw it like special operations, like mix matching their different camouflage that they would be wearing. I've had somebody try to tell me before, like, no, nobody would ever mix max. If they're working in woodlands, they're going to wear woodlands. But it's like, well, that's not necessarily true because I've also talked with people. It's like, oh yeah, no, well, it was changing of seasons. It was darker on the ground, and because the trees were starting to die, it's actually a little bit lighter up top, so all the leaves were falling. So we'd wear woodland tops, and then like sand or woodland bottoms and desert tops. Because it's about blending in. Like you're talking about, foreground and background is extremely important. So just knowing that can save your life, perhaps.
Yeah,
so very cool.
You go to like the southwest part of the country, right? You have like all these like green bushes, but the ground is like sand. So like DCU bottoms and like a woody top there is awesome. Like snow stuff, obviously drones kind of change a lot of this stuff too now, but because you have to worry about overhead. But back in the day, it was, hey, you wore over white bottoms and usually like your woody cam top or Gore-Tex or whatever you had going on, because that would blend into the kind of trees around you. and then there was usually, unless it was right after a huge snowstorm, usually the snow's just on the ground, right? After a couple of days, it kind of like falls off everything and it's on the ground. So your snow camo bottoms with the green top was usually the way to go.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's cool. Right now I'm backwards. I've got my nice Arctic snow top, but I don't have anything for the bottom. So, whatever. It's all about looking cool, with my jacket on. So this one's kind of a personal. So these next two questions came from Instagram. Best 5.56 and 308 barrel lengths for a prepared citizen. I mean, that's a loaded question, but I guess it's kind of like, for me, that the answer is, well, what are you doing with it? If you're doing room clearing, then a shorty 5.56. If you're doing long range engagements, then a long barrel 308, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I give you a pretty easy answer to both of those, right? So a general purpose rifle, the shorter we make the rifle, the harder the rifle's trying to run, right? Based off nominal gas tube sizes and gas ports, everything else. We found that in like Vietnam, when the first XM 177s and all that, they tweaked the barrel length a little bit. I'd say once you get, I know guys like 12.5, 13 set, all those intermediates. A 14.5 is a really sweet barrel length, because I'm not getting into that lower to shorter barrels where you have to start springing them heavier and doing the smaller gas ports and such. Yeah. And I'm in my context, I'm talking of full pressure ammo and with a suppressor on the rifle. Right. Yep. So if I have a super long, a long gun, like I'm saying, a 20-inch barrel on there, and then I put a suppressor in the end of it, that gets pretty long. So if I start doing anything out of vehicles or anything inside building, can be done. I know it can be done. However, it's not very handy, and it just takes a little longer to get the gun out of the car. Right. And if you're doing, guerrilla warfare stuff, you probably are going to be doing some driving in a car at some point. Just saying. And then on you're not, again, with the short barrels, your trajectory is going to be a little more looping, because your bullet's slightly slower, right? So I don't want too long where it's not handy. I don't want too short where the gun's running extra hard and I'm losing a little bit of terminal effects. So that 14.5 with a 5.56 is kind of a sweet spot there. And I think with a 308, it's probably around 16 inches, somewhere in there, right? So again, I'm getting enough powder burn. But I'm I've seen 14.5, 308s and stuff, precision gas guns, kind of, if you don't have just the right, and those are tricky anyways, 308 gas guns, anything large frame, it really has to be tuned. You get shorter than 16, and it gets trickier, and the gas gets even goofier, and you get longer. And now it's a really long, heavy system. So 14.5 to 16, it's a pretty solid intermediate zone.
Yeah, makes sense. I like it. Let's continue on with kind of that mindset. Best, most versatile caliber for medium to small game, 300 yards and in. What are your thoughts?
Medium to small game.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's got to do with legal in your state, because 5.56, 223 is not legal to hunt in
some states.
Are
you running a bolt gun? Are you running a small frame gas gun? What are you trying to stay with? I'd say, 5.56 is decent, right? But we're always, especially with certain bullets, the accuracy versus the terminal effects. If you're like, hey, I want terminal effects relatively flat shooting out to 300. The military did all the testing, the 6.8 SPC. But again, it's getting harder to find because nobody ever adopted it. But that I've dropped. That's my deer rifle. So I still have one of the first prototypes made from way back in the day when Barrett and AMU and Fifth Group were playing with that stuff. So I have one of the original rifles, and it's killed a ton of deer, and it does a great job. I don't know if you've seen Dr. Gary Roberts, all the testing that they did on that cartridge. And the problem was they made it a little too slow, I think, because of some of the chamber issues with the drawings were wrong. There's a whole thing that happened with it. And then the army, just like the big army and the military always does, if they didn't think of it, it's a bad idea. So, it was designed with almost no no funds, between, again, Barrett, Remington, Fifth Group, AMU. They got together, they came up with this concept. They went in testing. It was phenomenal for terminal ballistics, especially, out of a 12.5, the 14.5 rifle, up to a 16 inch. It absolutely drops things like ridiculously good. And that's what the guys wanted. But then Big Army is like, oh, hell no. Like, they actually had the ammo, they had the rifles and uppers and all that stuff ready to go. And they're like, nope, don't even crack the conics. So I was like, oh, and then a bunch of people got their PB slapped for that.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you're like, hey, out the 300 and I want to kill stuff with it.
Yep.
Yeah. 6.8 SPC. It's because it's not finicky like some of the super neck down with the sharp shoulder angle cartridges that are out there. It feeds really well as long as you got like the good I think PRI Max probably my favorite for that caliber. You don't have a lot of the bolt problems and everything else with like you have with like 6 arc and mag issues, all the other stuff that goes along with that, the powder. Let's see, it's definitely hitting harder than 5.56. It's not as flat shooting as some of the other ones, but the terminal ballistics, like I said. And then 300 blackout is 300 to me. 300 blackout was like an MP5 SD replacement. I know guys shoot it in 16 and shoot animals with it and stuff, but again,
that was its sole purpose, was to
it was so I could be super quiet, and then I have to give somebody the bad news, like a couple hundred yards away. I can with these AK like ballistics, but again, it's not a very flat shooting cartridge. To me, like I have I think 2 300 blackouts in the house, and they're both like 8 to 9 inch barrels, like suppressed. Like that's their job.
That's where they shine.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's probably that's pretty popular with hog hunters. Like the 6.8. So that's
yeah. No, that's solid. I like that. Really quick as we transition to probably our final talking points here. Gray Sky training. Yep. So. You started Gray Sky, what, 2 years ago? Is that right?
No, about a year, not even a year and a half.
Not even a year. Okay, so I'm not too far off, but about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Why Gray Sky? I live in New Hampshire. I can kind of guess, but
I don't know. There really was not that much like deep thought put into it, but it kind of people have probably have said to me after the fact, like, oh yeah, it's like your worst day type stuff. I was like, oh, I guess, yeah.
Sure.
But it's like
it makes sense.
Yeah, thin blue line Punisher skull was taken, so it's like a Gray Sky now. No, I really didn't want to be like like super tactically, and I hate like all the like cliche stuff.
Yeah,
like I'm not one of those guys. I just super clean and just nothing weird about it, man. It's just the name.
Yeah, fair enough, dude. So what do you hope people take away from Gray Sky training that goes beyond shooting?
Let's see. Beyond shooting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the whole piece of it, right? And I think one of the things that I've been told that I do well is layering the skills, right? There's a ton of dudes out there. There's a lot of great trainers, like I'm friends with a lot of dudes that do shooting, and they're all they're in it for the right reasons, just like I think I am, right? I don't have to do this. Like I could just do the PSD contracting stuff and make more money than I need. I actually hurt myself doing the training side half the time. But I love teaching people, and I'm really passionate, especially about like the long range shooting, the small frame gas, like the SPR stuff, the SWAT sniper stuff. I'm very passionate. I love the field craft part of it. I put a lot of time in my life developing it. I got to do it, for real, in the military. I got to do it in law enforcement. I've done the competition stuff. I got to teach it in a formal location, or formal schoolhouse. So I just like, I'd feel bad just kind of letting that skill set just kind of die off and fade. So teaching is a way for me to kind of stay in that part of the game, stay current. I'm still doing like real world stuff, which is cool. And I think if you don't do real world stuff, every so often you kind of like lose that sharpness and that edge. Like looking for bad guys. Like it's fun. I don't like when I can't do real world.
I mean, I think that also lends to why your trainings are so valuable too. I mean, again, one of my favorite things that you posted on your social was, to kind of like deep think kind of thing was, actually doesn't take a whole lot of thought to realize how accurate you are here, but was, if you're seeking instruction from somebody who's never actually applied said instruction in a real life scenario, you're taking instruction from a hobbyist. And I just thought, I was like, damn, you know what? I think a lot of my instruction is going to be just safety and fundamentals because I've practiced that, that's something I've lived, and I've got the proof behind it. Right. But when it comes down to tactics and stuff like that, it's like, hey, I can say what's worked for me as a guy who's never been in a gunfight. Right. And it's like, if you want something seriously, like, hey, you're talking gear, you're talking like, hey, I'm just talking about fun stuff on the internet. You want some, like true educational training from somebody who's actually lived it, survived it, then seek training like from Gray Sky Training and things like that. So that's probably my biggest takeaway there is ultimately it's a mindset thing of being an asset, not a liability, and engaging your thinking. I mean, that's kind of the theme throughout all of this is you've talked about all these different types of historical aspects, a lot of books that you've read, a lot of experience. And it's like being a thinker and being a shooter is, I mean, you have to be both. If you're just a shooter, you're going to get yourself in a really stupid situation or yourself killed. If you're just a thinker and you don't have the skills to apply to be a shooter, then, thanks for your thoughts, I guess. But at the end of it all, being a thinker and a shooter and then being a student always is something that I think that I've taken away from you, which is, invaluable. So,
yeah. And I think I shared that for somebody else, the one that you just said. What I hope people take away beyond shooting is really the whole thing of it, right? And I have a bunch of different contexts that kind of come in there, and there's a lot of awesome dudes that are out there, that don't have a military background or whatever, and they're just awesome shooters, and they go out and they win a bunch of comps and everything, and there's those guys can absolutely teach you how to shoot. I'm not taking anything away from anyone else, but when I even in my classes, like my someone teach like an LE scoped carbine class, they're teaching the shooting side. Like me, I'm trying to teach not just the shooting, but I teach the roll, right? So all the other stuff that goes into like running a successful program, like what the qual should look like, like all the back end stuff that keeps everything going, like picking how to select your equipment, right? Like what works on a USPSA like competition range might not work in an alley in Detroit at midnight, right? So that context really does matter. A lot of guys say it doesn't, or feel like it doesn't as much as people say, but and there's the other side of it too. You know what I mean? Like the competition is going to get you killed in the streets, like that also. There is a happy middle ground where you could say, yes, you need these skills, and yes, you have to be able to apply it. That's kind of that crossover point is I think why I've been as successful as I have, because I can bring I could talk to the why of everything that I teach, right?
Yeah.
And in the circumstance of the student that they are in, right? Like, yes, I know why this other person said this. However, in your case, this is why I would recommend not doing that. And that's always, and like, if you look at like a lot of guys like, hey, like, the top units in the world, like the biggest, JSOC counterterrorism units that are out there, they go out and they bring in the experts, they bring in a race car driver, they'll bring in a competition shooter, they do this, and that's awesome, because everyone that's at those units knows their job very well. It's a well-oiled machine. It's something they can pick and choose what they're taking from that guy that matches their context. If I have someone that just goes to a police department to teach a class, and they're, hey, this is what I do. A lot of these people don't understand how much or how fast the turnover has been in the law enforcement and in the military over the last few years, especially law enforcement in the last 5 years. There's a lot of experienced guys have left. So you have these newer guys that are trying to run these firearm training programs that are hoping someone comes in and tells them all this stuff, right? They don't understand like a lot of the context and how it relates to everything. They're trying to build all this stuff. So you just have to be careful of, making sure that everything that you are teaching now, that you learn from this outsider, matches what your actual job is and what you're doing and what the legal requirements are, your left and right and all that stuff,
Right.
There's a lot of bad police shooting videos. There's a lot of amazing police shooting videos where, dude, got the hostage and, the cop runs in like bang and, kills the hostage. Like I think I saw one like in the last day or two. There's also videos where there's a hostage taker, and the cops basically magged up, and you see both the hostage and the hostage taker, crumple to the ground because they got CNS hits on both of them. So there's always like it does kind of matter,
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, you're absolutely right, man. And I appreciate you, coming on and talking, to all of this and sharing your experiences, your knowledge, wisdom on all of that. And for anybody that would be interested in taking a class by you and, following you on your socials, where can they find you?
Yeah. So grayskytraining.com is the website. All the classes are listed on there. I'm getting into like the gear sales side as well. Right now I've got some weapon mounted laser rangefinders, stuff like that. I guess a little bit of swag on there, but there's a blog as well. So I try and post articles. Most of it is like kind of SPR related, ammo, scope carbine type of stuff. But I've got my own target now through Axle Targets, which is pretty cool. If you go on the blog, it explains the why of it and everything. But it's got a 1 mil grid system, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I'm trying to put info out as well. If you follow me on Instagram, I haven't made a company Instagram. I probably should, but it's SGTJAYP. And it was my personal one. And like, why is it SGT? Because somebody made it for me like 15 years ago, and I forgot about it. And I was like, I think I have one of those Instagram things. And I just started posting, and people started to know me. So I kind of got like stuck with it. So
fair enough. Sergeant JP there. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's on Instagram. And don't follow unless you like occasionally hurt feelings.
Yeah, spicy takes, we'll call them.
Yes, sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes.
But I do try and put out some legitimate, like, good info on there.
Yeah, no, I know you do, man. It's every time you post, like, oh yeah, we got some more JP-isms, which is always awesome. So thanks again, man. I'm looking forward to having you out here again in a couple of weeks as we continue on some cool projects that the audience will be seeing very soon. Some night vision awesomeness, and getting some friends together, doing some shooting and doing some storytelling, which is a little bit different for me on my channel, but it's gonna be fun. Yeah. And awesome. Yeah, so guys, again, thanks, Jay, and check out Gray Sky Training, everybody, and God bless you guys, and we'll see you next time right here.